Yo, what does it? Welcome back to Reviews with Jake, where I just got done watching Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Venom, Let There Be Carnage is the next Venom movie that, well, features Carnage. Kinda speaks for itself. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Carnage, he's, well, like Venom says in the movie, he's like Venom, but a red one. And he's bonded with a guy named Cletus Cassidy, who happens to be a serial killer psychopath played by Woody Harrelson. I actually went and checked out my 2018 written review of the original film because I realized I hadn't actually watched it since I watched it in theaters back then. And oddly enough, all the feelings that I had walking into that movie were kind of the same feelings I had going into this one. That I was super excited for that original film because I love Venom and I was excited to see him in a movie, similar to me loving Carnage, being excited to see him in a movie. But then with both, I proceeded with caution because both had a PG-13 rating, which I did not think was appropriate for either film. Carnage is brutal. He rips people to pieces. I mean, there's no possible way that a PG-13 version of him could do him any justice. I thought the same thing with the original Venom film, and yes, I'll admit that film actually kind of pulled it off despite the fact it was PG-13. I mean, would have been a lot better if it was R, but I think it worked. But Carnage is a different story. Carnage just can't be tamed. Come on. Admittedly, this one had an uphill battle for me, but still, it's Carnage, guys. Yee. Well, the pros start with Tom Hardy playing both Eddie Brock as well as Venom. I love this pair, I guess, in the first film, and I loved it again here. Seeing a guy have arguments with himself, the voice in his head that wants to eat brains, and they argue and bicker like an old married couple, it's just delightful. This movie really leans into the ridiculous, the comedic aspect, which in the first film that kind of took me by surprise, but in this film, I was ready for it. But in this film, they really doubled down on that. They really dove into the ridiculousness. Like, this movie is downright silly. There are times where this film feels like a cartoon, like physical comedy and effects that make me feel like I'm watching Michael Jordan in the original Space Jam. Not LeBron in the new one, because I actually enjoyed this. Shots fired. It's straight up loony. They actually add some sound effects that sound like it's straight out of a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, which was, I don't know, I guess an odd decision, but like I said, I wasn't really that surprised. Why was it an odd decision? Because the main event here is Venom fighting Carnage. These are like the two most brutal, badass, awesome Marvel villains ever. To see these two finally throwing, I guess, hands on the big screen, it was something I never thought I'd have the pleasure of seeing, but here we are, and when it happened, I was thoroughly entertained. This movie certainly has its faults, but I cannot deny that I was entertained from start to finish. However, that being said, this movie has several problems circulating around our two titular characters, and that leads me to the cons. Let's start with the sheer amount of both in this film, because, well, I thought it was pretty minimal. Most of the Venom appearances in this film are delegated to him and Eddie Brock just arguing, which, yes, is funny, but that's not what I'm here to see. I want to see Venom fucking shit up. And this time around, we just don't really get that much of it. I mean, yes, it's been a while since I've seen the original Venom film, but I'm pretty sure we get a significant droppage of Venom mayhem in this film. And Carnage, yeah, you get a few scenes of him throwing some guards around, a bunch of no-names, but let's be real here. We're here to see him fight Venom, and you only get that once in the film. This plot just didn't leave a lot of time for either one of our marquee characters to shine. Hell, I didn't think the plot really gave a lot of room for anything to shine. This film feels like it almost doesn't follow the classic 3-act formula. I mean, it does and it doesn't. Like, it kind of is broken up, but the things that are covered in each act are just kind of strange things to focus on. It devotes most of its focus toward things that I just did not care about, and by the time that it got to the stuff that I did want to see, it was abundantly clear that at that point, I wasn't going to receive much more of it. Like I said before, most of the runtime focuses on the relationship between Eddie and Venom, which obviously leans heavily into the comedic aspect. And while yes, it is charming at times, other times I'm like, okay, haha, but what the are we doing? I am here to watch Venom fight Carnage, not watch Venom attend a rave for a laugh. That may have been funny, great, and enough in the first Venom film when our antagonist that we had to work with was Riot. But in this film, we had Carnage. He's the cream of the crop, so why are we wasting any amount of our very short runtime on stuff like this? Hell, I would have been content if they used this time to focus more and build up Cletus Cassidy and Shriek, our two antagonists who I thought didn't really bring much to the table. Shriek was basically nothing more than a plot device, and Cletus Cassidy just was not very interesting, despite the fact that he gets a lot more screen time than Carnage himself does. Which frankly could have been fine, because Carnage is a very simple character to understand understand. He's just nuts. He likes to kill stuff. But the problem is the Carnage we receive just does not feel brutal enough to be considered Carnage. This feels like the most watered down version we could have possibly gotten of this very violent character, like when he's ripping through a bunch of no-name characters, guards in a prison and whatnot. Basically all he's doing is just tossing them off to the side. He's not actually killing any of them. Anything remotely brutal that possibly happens that would cause any form of bloodshed always is inferred. It happens off camera. It just feels too safe, too soft hitting. I mean, it's basically, I guess, the same thing they kind of did with Venom in the first film when he went up against a big group of people, just kind of tossing them off to the side. It is certainly not ideal, but I can give it a pass. I can see past it to some degree, but with Carnage, it's a completely different story. I just cannot look past that. The only person I recall him stabbing with his sharp tentacles was Venom, which is just another big CG blob, and it just does not hit the same. All in all, for a film literally inviting there to be carnage, there is an alarming lack of it and him. Maybe it should have been, please let there be carnage, or is that too nice? Maybe we'll go with please let there be carnage. I mean, at least then it would have an R rating like it should have had all along. I'm going to give Venom Let There Be Carnage a C. But that's just me. What do you guys think? Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. And make sure to subscribe to this channel to stay up to date. New reviews coming real soon. Stay safe. Thanks for checking in.